pregnant woman feels sick. Doctor says, "It's over," when he sees ultrasound. Emma sat in her car outside the clinic, her hands resting on her stomach, her fingers cold despite the spring sun filtering through the windshield. Her eyes stared ahead, but her mind was far away, locked in a storm of unease she couldn't shake. For weeks, something hadn't felt right. Not just the usual fatigue or nausea, this was different, heavier, like her body was trying to tell her something she didn't want to hear. At 39, Emma had almost given up hope of becoming a mother. But 6 weeks ago, 2 pink lines appeared and everything changed. She and Dave had cried, laughed, and whispered plans for the nursery. Now, sitting in that parking lot, her joy felt like it was slipping through her fingers. Her stomach cramped again. It wasn't sharp, just dull and deep, like a shadow stretching across her abdomen. She pressed a hand to it, hoping the warmth might quiet the unrest. She'd felt off all day, nauseated, dizzy, with a strange chill that made her teeth clench. Friends said pregnancy was uncomfortable, that it would get worse before it got better. But this didn't feel like morning sickness. It felt like something was wrong. She checked the time on her phone. 5 minutes until her appointment. She'd nearly canceled earlier, telling herself it was just anxiety. But her reflection in the mirror that morning had unsettled her. Pale, clammy, dark circles under her eyes. She didn't look like someone who was carrying life. She looked like someone losing a battle. Inside the clinic, the air was too cold, the lights too bright. She signed her name, took a seat, and folded her hands tightly in her lap. Across the room, a young couple giggled over a sonogram photo. Emma glanced away. Her throat tightened. The nurse called her name. Emma stood, legs stiff, heart thudding loud in her chest. Every step down the hallway felt like a countdown. She lay back on the crinkling paper sheet, staring at the ceiling tiles, listening to the murmur of voices outside the room. She tried to breathe. Just breathe. But all she could think was, what if the worst had already started, and she just didn't know it yet? Dr. Morris stepped into the room with a clipboard in hand and a smile that didn't quite reach his eyes. He greeted Emma softly, asked how she was feeling. She tried to answer, but her voice caught in her throat. He looked over her chart, nodding slowly as she mentioned the fever and the aches. He didn't say much, just a quiet as he pulled the ultrasound machine closer. Emma lay back, pulled her shirt up, and braced herself. The gel was cold against her skin. She stared at the ceiling, trying to steady her breathing, trying not to think. The probe pressed gently against her belly. The machine beeped and hummed as grainy images flickered to life on the screen. Silence. Dr. Morris leaned in slightly, adjusted the wand, squinted. His brows knit together. He clicked a few buttons, moved the probe again. Still silence. Emma's heart raced. The room felt too still, too quiet, like the moment before a thunderstorm hits. She turned her head to look at him. He wasn't smiling anymore. His mouth was set in a tight line. He pressed again, a little firmer now. The screen showed shifting shadows, but no sound. No familiar rhythmic thump. No sign of the tiny flutter she'd been hoping to see. Time stretched. Emma couldn't speak. Her throat had closed completely. She searched his face for any sign of reassurance, but found only focus. Her mind screamed with the silence. Where was the heartbeat? Why wasn't he saying anything? Finally, he pulled the wand away and wiped the gel from her belly. He didn't look at her at first. Then, with a sigh so heavy it filled the room, he said the words she would never forget. It's over. Her world cracked open. For a second, she thought she'd misheard, but the look in his eyes told her everything. Her breath caught, and the tears started before she could stop them. She curled in on herself, arms crossed over her stomach, as if trying to hold something in that was already slipping away. A knock on the door. Dave burst in, out of breath, face flushed with worry. Emma looked up at him, lips trembling. It's gone, she whispered. He said it's over. Emma didn't speak on the ride home. Her body leaned against the car door, her eyes staring out the window without seeing anything. Dave kept glancing at her, his jaw tight, his fingers gripping the steering wheel harder than usual. The silence between them wasn't angry. It was full of shock. A silence that settled heavy on their shoulders. At home, Emma went straight to the couch and curled into a ball. The warmth of the blanket didn't reach her. She felt hollow. Her stomach still cramped, her skin burned with fever. But none of it mattered now. What was the point of worrying about symptoms if the baby was already gone? Dave sat nearby, staring at the floor. Hours passed. The light in the room shifted as the sun lowered in the sky, and neither of them moved much. A plate of untouched toast sat on the table, cold. Emma had no appetite. Her body felt like a stranger's. She hated it for betraying her. But as the hours dragged on, something gnawed at the edge of her thoughts. The pain hadn't changed. It hadn't gotten worse, or better. And the fever, it hadn't gone away. It still came and went in waves. Every few hours, a chill would ripple through her, and then the sweats returned, soaking her shirt. Her body ached deep in the joints, a heaviness that made even walking to the bathroom feel exhausting. She lay back, pressing her hand against her stomach. She couldn't tell what was grief and what was real, but something still didn't feel right. Not in the emotional way, but physically. As though her body hadn't received the same message the doctor had. Late that night, Emma stood in front of the bathroom mirror. Her reflection looked worse than before. Pale, eyes dark and sunken. But her skin was hot, burning, her forehead damp. She touched it, confused. The pregnancy was supposedly over, but the fever remained. So did the nausea. Dave appeared in the doorway behind her. He touched her back and frowned. "Still warm," he said. She nodded, barely. "Something's wrong," she whispered, but not in the way we thought. Neither of them slept that night. 2 days later, Emma found herself lying on another exam table, the paper beneath her crackling with every breath. Her skin still felt too warm, her energy drained, but something inside her had shifted. Not hope, something more like quiet defiance. Dave sat beside her this time, his hand holding hers, steady even as his thumb twitched nervously. The new doctor, Dr. Patel, reviewed Emma's test results in silence. She was calm, focused, with eyes that didn't avoid hard questions. She didn't say much at first, just asked Emma about the fever, the cramps, the strange fatigue that hadn't let up. Emma answered as best she could, her voice low, her body aching. Dr. Patel glanced at the lab report once more, then looked up. Her tone was careful, but firm. "Some of these levels are inconsistent," she said. She didn't explain further, just typed a few notes and gently guided the ultrasound wand across Emma's lower belly. The machine lit up. For a few seconds, there was nothing but static and shifting gray. Emma held her breath. Dave leaned in, squinting. Dr. Patel moved the wand slightly, then stopped. "Wait." The screen flickered. A small flicker appeared, a blinking rhythm, faint but steady. Emma stared. Was that... She couldn't find the words. Dr. Patel nodded slightly. "That's a heartbeat," she said. Matter of fact, but kind. Emma blinked in disbelief, the room tilting slightly around her. Dave squeezed her hand so hard it hurt. The air in the room changed. Emma felt the tears come again, but this time, they didn't sting. They fell without resistance, a soft release of something she hadn't dared hope for. Dr. Patel turned back to the results. "You're fighting something," she said. "An infection. Your immune system's been reacting in ways that can affect hormones, even how the body presents early pregnancy. It's not the baby, it's something else." Emma let the words settle over her. Infection. Not loss. Not failure. Not the end. She closed her eyes. Inside her, life continued. Not broken, not gone, just hidden, behind the noise of something else entirely. Dave rested his forehead against hers. They didn't speak. They didn't need to. 12 weeks in, the baby's heartbeat was no longer faint. It pulsed loud and clear through the small room, like the beat of a distant drum calling them forward. Emma lay still as the tech moved the probe across her belly, her eyes fixed on the screen. There was movement now. Not just a flutter, but a stretch, a kick. The little body twisting, alive and unmistakably growing. Dave stood beside her, arms crossed tight against his chest, as if holding himself together. His eyes shimmered. He didn't blink. When the technician printed the image and handed it to Emma, she held it like it might disappear if she gripped it too hard. Her baby, still here. Later that afternoon, Dr. Patel explained everything again. A bacterial infection had been hiding beneath the surface, silent at first, then flaring. It had caused hormone changes that mimicked pregnancy loss. Fever, fatigue, cramping, even a slight dip in her HCG levels, enough to mislead. The ultrasound that day had likely been too early, or just poorly positioned. The baby had been there all along. Emma listened, hand resting on her belly, warmth blooming where cold panic used to live. She wasn't angry, not anymore. Dr. Morris had made a call based on what he saw, but it was a mistake, one that nearly shattered everything. She thought about how close she'd come to giving up, how deep into grief she'd already fallen. That night, Emma sat by the bedroom window with the printout in her lap. The baby's profile was clear now. A tiny nose, fingers curled into a soft fist. She wrote herself a letter, folding it slowly, sealing it with a piece of tape. It read, "To the woman who thought it was over. It wasn't." Dave walked in, holding a small box. Inside was a pair of newborn shoes, gray, soft, barely bigger than his palm. He set them gently on her lap. Emma reached out and touched his face, her eyes full of something new. Not just relief, something deeper. Joy. Outside, the spring wind moved through the trees. Inside, they sat together, listening to a silence that, for the first time in weeks, no longer felt empty.